Welcome back, everybody. It's Ashram Hours on the Nirvana channel. Going to get some retweets out here while we settle in. Hope you've had a lovely couple weeks. Sorry we missed you a couple weeks ago. I was sick, and I DM'd Sid. I said, dude, I'm sick. I can't go live today. And you
What
had
a coincidence.
Yeah, and then as it turns out, you were not feeling great yourself, and you had a conflict at that time. You're like, you know what? It kind of works because... So here we are, and there's a lot coming up. My God. I can feel a new energy approaching in the very near future. We've got a lot to talk about today, and yeah, couldn't be more excited. So much for the preamble. I just dove right into it, but how are you?
Let's see. Thanksgiving coming up soon. I'm tasked with cranberry sauce and eggnog. Two things that are rarely made by hand, but take but 5 minutes, and it makes all the difference.
Yeah, never been much of a cranberry sauce guy, but those who love it a lot.
It only goes with turkey. I've never
anywhere else
ever eaten it in any other context and mixed in with gravy and turkey. Yeah, I've got my bivouac podcasting studio down in the guest room. I'm in California right now.
Just retweeting our stream here. Don't mind me.
Yeah, actually, let me do the same.
No, you can't do it when I do it. You're supposed to talk through me doing it.
Oh, all right. Dead air space.
Yeah.
Goodness. So much is coiled up. Okay, we should talk about the launch of Samsara, which is imminent. Should talk about the expansion of people building on the AVM software stack to make the future of finance be floor enabled. Gosh, yeah. And also what all of this means for Nirvana and the store of value that just keeps storing value. Yeah. In fact, I want to start there at the end to just explain what is going on. Why is there Samsara? How does this dovetail into Nirvana's store of value? What is the strategy here? Thing number one is to make floor prices common sense. It's no secret that the origin of this project came from, I suppose, disillusionment is a fair word for this, and disillusionment in just the neutral sense about what goes on in traditional capital markets. And liquidity is just not something that you usually see on headlines. You'll see prices go up, prices go down. Underneath that is something that's fairly invisible to the average retail investor, which is whether the markets are liquid or not. Realize quickly that in digital assets, in particular, illiquidity is the name of the game. You just cannot move size with these things. And most of the pumps and most of the dumps all trace back to this one problem. A few years ago, there was a movement in DeFi to have protocol-owned liquidity. They recognized this problem that a project might launch a token. How do you make a market for it? How do you make it able to absorb people buying and selling? How do you avoid the inevitable cratering to zero? And the thought was, we can't really trust rationally incentivized humans to make markets. We want an algorithm to make the market, to make sure that there's liquidity. It was a really good idea. And a few years ago, there were some efforts in that. The issue with all the examples that come to mind is that they just didn't go all the way. It was protocol owned some of the liquidity. And in Nirvana's case, there was a radical simplification, which is just, what if the protocol owns literally all of the liquidity?
And to be clear, you mean protocol, not treasury wallet with a multi-sig and humans making decisions, but a literal smart contract with,
I'll tell you, man, this algorithm grinds my gears. the abuse of language. My spectrum is showing, I suppose. Protocols are protocols. Protocols aren't humans. HTTP is a protocol.
Yeah.
A company with a multi-sig and a treasury wallet is a company. It's not a protocol. But that ship sure has sailed in crypto, where you'll call something like Aave a protocol or Hyperliquid a protocol. No. They are companies operated by people. But in Nirvana's case, it is a protocol, properly speaking. It is an equation. It runs itself. There's no human meddling. It just the protocol, not people, own liquidity. That was the main impetus with this, and the most famous side effect is if the protocol owns the liquidity, the protocol can always be bidding at a liquidity level, and that bid for literally every token in supply is the floor price. And then what the protocol does with the liquidity is allocates it into a bigger bid, and then it'll bid higher for every token. And it does this in an unemotional, mathematical, guaranteed fashion. And it's not a human who's bidding, it's not a human who's concerned about market stability. It's just an equation and a binary code on the Solana blockchain that's bidding forever. Bringing this to a close, that is a powerful change in digital finance. And why not apply it all over the place? So samsara is the commodification of this idea applied to different assets that we know and love. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Sol, popular meme coins, derivatives like JLP, the liquidity provider token for Jupiter markets, yield-bearing tokenized deposit notes like Carrots token. Any of these things can be put into this new derivative. That's essentially what samsara is. It's a derivatives exchange, and it's a new kind of derivative entirely. And we know about futures and options and yada, 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 the whole pandemonium of derivatives out there. Ours is the AV derivative.
The NAV.
The NAV, yeah.
The NAV token.
There you go. So for those tuning in, if you played with our DevNet demo for samsara, which is about to get a major overhaul, by the way, it's kind of been left on the vine while we've been doing dev sprints the last few weeks. You may have noticed that the ticker, it's called DAT this, DAT that, DAT BTC, DAT Sol, DAT Bunk, DAT ETH. It's a really, really good analogy for what is going on here. DATs, digital asset treasuries, are a simple idea. And unfortunately, DAT companies have poorly implemented it, in my opinion. It's a good idea. It's tricky to implement as a company, but it is easy to implement as a protocol. The simplicity of a protocol implementing the DAT idea is dead simple, and it happens to look exactly like Nirvana's AVM. Here's the DAT idea. The DAT idea is that you have a treasury of a digital asset, or several, but for simplicity, let's just say one, Bitcoin. That is being held, and shares are issued, stock, which is a proxy for how much Bitcoin is held on the books by this treasury. The amount of Bitcoin in notional is the NAV, just the net asset value, what the company has. And then the share price, times its supply, is the market capitalization, just the equity value of the company. And the theory is that this provides traders with something that looks and smells a lot like leverage. That if the share value, the market capitalization of the stock, trades above the NAV, it's like you're amplifying the Bitcoin holdings. And then on top of this, if people are buying the stock, that's cash flow into the company, and the company can acquire more Bitcoin, growing the NAV, growing the market capitalization of the stock, and it's just a virtuous cycle. The NAV grows, the stock grows. As the NAV grows, that pushes up the value of the stock, because of course it should be trading at a premium to the NAV. Unfortunately, in the case of DATCOs, that of course is in scare quotes. There's actually no rule that the market capitalization of the stock is going to be greater than the asset values on the books. And indeed, we're starting to see some of these DATCOs go upside down, where the market cap of the stock goes underneath the NAV, which just breaks the idea. The idea was that the stock would always trade at a premium. That's what makes this thing work.
Yeah, it's this question of why would I hold the stock? And I have held MicroStrategy, and I traded it up, last year from 200 to 400. Like, it's a cool idea. But 80% of them,
idea.
yeah, 80% of them right now are trading below NAV. And I think Michael Saylor came up with something brilliant. He's bullish on Bitcoin. He says, I'm going to make my company like a heavy Bitcoin treasury company. And as he pointed out the other day, because a lot of people right now are like fighting the shit out of MicroStrategy. There's like, they're going to collapse. They're going to have to sell. We won't stop going down until they sell. And he's kind of like, we have $500 million company like operating on the side, generating, tech value, whatever. But the problem is that idea, that model was then taken, as things are, and butchered and redone in many ways, where pretty much all of them just included inside pre-sale of shares at a low ticker price. And then when they went live, as those vested out, all that equity just got dumped on the market. And a lot of people banged out a lot of serious X's on it. But then the question remains now is like, well, who's ever going to buy that stock now? Where's the floor on that thing? And they're down, some of them a lot. I know Naka is one that gets picked on a lot because it's pretty horrendous. I was just reading about some of the details the other day, like, $100 million tickets in this thing, banging out 6-7 X's. How much of that they managed to exit, but it's down 95% from whatever and trading well below NAV. So yeah, an imperfect thing, butchered, extractive. And that's just what happens when somebody makes a lot of money doing something. Other people say, hey, how could we do that thing and just make a lot of money? And not, and so, I think a math built around this should be a very attractive option or opportunity. And we started down this path because we were talking about NAV tokens, and through the DevNet cycle, we've been iterating on sort of how best to frame this product, how best to talk about this product, name this product. And the final change I'm happy to announce for those of you tuning in today, the big change is we're moving away from DAT token and we're moving to NAV token. And the core fundamental reason for that, or the foundational thought there, is, first of all, NAV perfectly captures the key ingredient to what's improved on here. It's like a focus on the NAV, not calling it a floor token. The NAV, net asset value, one of the most recognizable acronyms in finance, and perfectly capturing what the value add here is for this model, and making the whole platform more DAT adjacent rather than DAT dependent. Because part of the reason we made this thing is because we're not all that bullish on the long-term prospects of DATs, at least in their current form. I think there's some good ones out there. I'm not saying these people are all awful, but there's certainly some really bad ones out there. And it's going to be an interesting historical case study for, what do you do? What do you do when equity is trading well below NAV? We're seeing some Ethereum DATs selling their ETH to buy back shares, and then vice versa. And there's just going to be this tug of war between the asset value underlying these shares and the equity holders, who are obviously demanding some kind of returns, shareholders. Right. So NAV tokens. And there's some wordplay there. We got the Nirvana N. So it's kind of like going back to AV. We're just bringing the N with us. And that's an exciting change. It's the final one as we get ready to go live. Fourth time's a charm.
Yeah, in this case, the NAV is the value in the floor. Yeah. There's three ways to fix a DAT. You need three things, or there are three problems here. One is the problem with DATCOs. One is human fiat. The second one is dilution, and the third one is there's no rule that the stock trades at a premium. Dilution, humans, and there's just no rule. It's an idea that the market cap stays above NAV, but it doesn't have to. stocks can trade wherever they want to trade. That is not the case with Samsara. The NAV token will always trade at a premium to the NAV. That's solution number one. Solution number two is the human involvement. That you mentioned that some of these companies, they might have an incentive to keep their stock price high, and so they decide, in an anxiety-ridden session of the shareholder meetings to sell some of their treasury. Well, says who? That humans can just do things with DATCOs, but when you have a protocol, it's transparent. It's as well regulated as the Bitcoin monetary policy. It just does what it does. So you can bet that that it's going to perform the same way today as tomorrow. The third problem with DATCOs is that they fund themselves through dilution, and that is at peril of liquidity. And that's not the case with the AVM, with Samsara or Nirvana. The funding, the growth of the NAV doesn't come from issuing new shares. It doesn't come from selling debt or diluting or as you mentioned, insider deals ahead of time. It's just if the share is bought, if the NAV token is bought, that is cash flow into the NAV, the end. On top of the fact that the fee revenue also goes into the NAV.
Yeah.
And there you go.
All the activity just feeds into itself, this kind of perpetuating cycle. And for a trader who doesn't really care about a DAT or a NAV, whatever, trading these tokens represents an amplified exposure to the underlying. So if I have some bonk and I'm bullish on bonk, I think bonk's going to go 10x this year, for example. And I say, okay, I'm going to take this bonk and I'm going to buy NAV bonk with it. I'm going to place my bonk into this reserve. I'm going to hold on to these NAV tokens. I can borrow bonk against them if I want to go over to bonk rewards and lock it up long term. I can loop it up if I think NAV bonk is really going to rip. And NAV bonk will trade at a premium to the initial NAV that I got in. And over time, if there's activity and people are coming in and they're speculating, they're getting in, they're getting out, they're borrowing, looping, leveraging, unleveraging. All of that just feeds into this NAV. And there's a lot of reasons why, as a trader, I could find that model attractive versus holding vanilla bonk or vanilla Bitcoin or whatever else. The yield essentially just gets folded into the floor for all of these things. And so it's a collective yield. It's hey, here's all the fee generated. We're going to put it in here. It's going to lift all boats, increase borrow capacity for everybody. And so when we're talking about leverage and ways to hold an asset and increase the potential upside of it, most of that comes with liquidations. Now, there's some really interesting protocols being built with leverage tokens and other sort of non-liquidatable leverage, and they all have their trade-offs. They all have their various ways of achieving non-liquidatable leverage. And this is yet another one, a much simpler kind of concrete one. I'm really excited to see how it plays out. And honestly, as much as this price action of the past few weeks has been troubling to me as a investor, holder, speculator, builder, I think these things launching kind of around 52-week range lows is really nice. There was a little voice in my head back in like August, and it was talking about, oh, Q4 is going to be so explosive. And that's roughly when we were planning to launch. And I was like, oh, it'd be maybe like less comfortable to launch these things after a token did a 10x or 100x, because it's going to start at its $1 price in bonk or whatever. And yeah, anyways, so as far as going live, I much prefer to do it on an asset that's in a deep dip. Launching this derivative in a place where, there's presumably a little more upside than downside. Now, we're not here to talk about the value of the underlying and where they will go and all these things, but for what it's worth, I like launching during this dip from a trader brain. My trader brain's like, this is better. So fun side note.
I agree. And in any case, once it's live forever. It'll weather every cycle and every storm. It's one of the motivating philosophies of Nirvana, which is explicitly designed to be a store of value protocol. Store of value doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't go up. The ANA token can go up 1,000,000% tomorrow. if people so decided. But what it will do is actually store value, actually store it. And that's because crypto is very cyclical. There's panic, there's fear, there's greed, there's euphoria. And I want there to be an asset that at the very least stores the value, stores it.
Captures it on the way up. Yeah.
Captures it. Yeah. Nirvana is a machine that turns temporary euphoria into permanent wealth. Plain and simple. Every time there's a big pump, every time there's a lot of excitement and liquidity is flowing into crypto, tokens go up, Nirvana will lock that in permanently, just in case.
That's a dubious claim. And as such, we've been met over the year with some skepticism, naturally, from anyone who thinks, oh, that's interesting. How does it work? Is there some bot that comes in and bids it? Do you guys have to sometimes shut down in case of extreme volatility? There's still, there's always going to be this gap between like, oh, this is how everything works and you work differently. And to that end, we've launched a new campaign, or we're about to launch a new campaign called Break the Floor. And we will invite everybody in who would like to try to use our DevNet. It's going to be reset. I'll let you talk a little more about the specific technical pieces that need to happen before this goes live. But that date's coming up very soon, next week, and like live next week. Exact date, I think the announcement's probably going out today, tomorrow. And next we'll talk. Yes. Yeah, it is happening next week. And we'll talk about which assets are listed. There's going to be multiple assets. And at the core of this campaign, essentially, it's inviting everybody in, somewhat of a dress rehearsal for the application itself as well, where it's going to launch as though it were live and using not testnet tokens, though, just fake tokens. You said this is going to be on the mainnet. Right?
Oh, yeah. I know there's some confusion about that. It'll be on mainnet because, I don't know, get 10 people together in a room and probably only 2 of them know how to configure their browser wallets to connect to DevNet. So it'll be on mainnet. It's easy to use that way. But the tokens, like the representations of wrapped Bitcoin and SOL derivatives, they'll all be fake. So there's a special Samsara faucet where you can get some fake Bitcoin, worth $88,000 according to the oracles, and you can interact with the app.
89,000 actually, as of almost 90. Yeah, we're ripping today. We're the shorts are getting obliterated, which was pretty much due to happen after that capitulation last week. Market analysis aside, we've got this going live next week, where the essentially mainnet, but using testnet tokens, or what I, as my non-dev brain thinks of as testnet tokens, not real money. And we'll just encourage everyone to buy as much as they want. We want to run these things up extremely high. The higher, the better. The floor will rise behind. It'll model how the system works, let people play around with it, learn the system. And then on one fateful day, we will go live, not too long, I think next Thursday. And we will go live on a live stream, just like we did back in April. And we will broadcast the crash, the epic break attempt of the floor, where everybody is encouraged to be online with us at that moment, selling everything they've got, and just try to recreate the most nuclear black swan event you could ever imagine. And if we're really working hard at this, we could send it to like literal 100% of supply nuked into this would be awesome.
Yeah, let's try.
And anybody who can sell any token below the stated floor price gets $50,000.
And
we'll bounty powered
on live TV.
Bounty powered Break the Floor campaign coming up next week. And that is, for those of you wondering, is essentially like a dress rehearsal for the go live on Samsara itself. So, as we've gone through this DevNet, as you said, there's more changes coming to the front end and some other stuff. And so we are into those final innings where it makes sense to just reset the thing, get people in, try it out, and really stress test this thing and prove out the model. I think proving out the model and having that content is going to be a really nice piece before we kick this thing off in earnest.
Yeah. Yes, it'll be an effective way to say, if you doubt it, come and break it. Try your hardest. Buy as much as you can. Sell as much as you can. Let's do the biggest panic sell ever and watch what happens. And yeah, we'll just be hanging out, sipping our tea, because the way the AVM works is you don't need a war room where you get on the red telephone with your market makers to deploy more capital.
Shut it down. Yeah.
Defend the peg or whatever. However, you did mention, is there a bot bidding this? And I wanted to touch in on this point. I know we're on a tangent of a tangent of a tangent. It has
this is good.
Connects back in to Nirvana. It also generates revenue. It's a derivatives exchange. The fees earned from swaps and borrowing are minor, but they add up, and it's within the exchange. And all of that revenue is put to work. Half of it goes to anybody who's using Samsara. I can get into details about that in a second. Another half just goes to market by Anna continuously, with no discretion, and also no selling. And to just give some numbers, let's see. Samsara it's an exchange. It'll list many assets. Let's compare it to a decentralized exchange on Solana, like Radium. Radium does about $1 billion a day in volume, give or take. Let's say we do 1% of that. Let's say we do $10 million a day, 1% of Radium for all of our assets. Well, that comes out to be about $36 million a year in revenue. Half of that goes to just buying Anna. So there's a $36 million annual bid to Anna if we do 1% of the daily volume of Radium. Multiply that
today. Yeah, and today they're at 62 million. So obviously all of this stuff ebbs and flows with market activity. But you're right. During our peak moments, like this stuff gets up there.
I'm sorry, who's at 62 million?
I could be wrong.
Oh, I'm talking about their exchange, not their token. The Radium exchange is doing $1 billion in volume.
Either way, we're in like peak apathy moment right now. So even at the low end, per day. So and the idea is that rather than send some portion back to Nirvana, in the AVM cases, it'll be 15% automatically through the system. We're just taking all of it. It is our strong belief that Anna is the optimal treasury asset because it gives you access to a token that has a minimum value that you can borrow against liquidation leverage free or liquidation free, interest free. And so rather than just tell people about it and say, hey, you should do this, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to take our revenue, we're going to stuck it in there, and we're going to borrow USDC against it, and we're going to fund operations that way and growth. So this is our first major step out of sort of the mothership. And it's one of many, and I want to get to those in a sec, but maybe go back. You're getting into the bot. Is it a bot that buys this back? I think that's an important distinction. I mean, it's a question I've had 3 times where they, how does this infinity bid work? Is it just always there? Is it something that could glitch? Like,
I'll tell you, it's very simple. Again, we do 1% of the volume of Radium. That's about $36 million a year in revenue. Half of that just buys Anna, and the other half gets split to the Samsara platform. So 50-50, let's say 20 million to Nirvana, 20 million to Samsara. And the way Samsara divvies it out, well, it's governed how it divvies it out. But there's a split in the revenue that Samsara generates. The governors decide how much goes into investing in the floor for Samsara markets and just direct rev share to governance token holders. The governance token being Prana. It's the governance token of the entire ecosystem. So you got 20 million to Nirvana, 20 million to Samsara in under this estimate. And depending on where the governance puts the split point, it could be 10 million is going into raising the floors of Samsara markets, which to avoid any confusion, you don't need money going into the floor. The floor is there and it's rising just because these NAV tokens are rising. But this is a sweetener, another $10 million being pumped into raising the floors. You have two things pushing the floor up: the appreciation of the NAV token and this fee revenue. And then the remainder of that revenue is divvied up pro rata to the governance token holders. So there's $10 million being given out to Prana token holders. I don't know what the supply of Prana is right now. Is it 1 million?
6.5 million, but that was a month ago. Let me double check here.
Yeah.
Total Prana supply, 2.2 million.
2.2. Yep.
There you go.
So that's about $5 to every Prana.
I was looking at Ana supply, 6.5. Yeah, it's 7.9 now. Supply doth increase. Yeah.
Yep.
So outside of Samsara, and look, I want to give you a sorry, finish your tangent.
Yeah.
When bought?
Yeah, it's quite simple. So the Samsara market's generating revenue in Bitcoin and Sol and Bonk and JLP. Anyway, all that stuff just gets automatically liquidated for USDC. It's just on the market. As long as you're performing these trades every 20 minutes, it's not like you're dealing with enormous size and have to worry about price impact. That the volume is just processed as it comes in, turned into USDC, and it just buys Ana. I imagine that this bot would be running at a clip of about twice an hour, and it just collects all the revenue that's there, turns it into USDC at the best price, and buys Ana, and just runs.
Okay, and that automation will come in at some point. I think from day one, we'll probably just manual click it for the first bit, which I'm looking forward to. That'll be a fun activity. Outside of Samsara, and I want to give you a shout here because there's been a lot of questions about the time it's taking, the estimates that were given, and all this stuff. And those are fair questions. I too am anxious and excited to get it launched, as I'm sure you are. And something that maybe people haven't seen, because we haven't talked about it a whole lot, it's been very much in dev mode, are AVM integrations that are ongoing. And so just to summarize for people who are tuning in today, there are 5 teams, 5 separate groups of people who have seen what we're building, who have held on to the values of the AVM and everything we've talked about to this point today, and who've decided to spend their morning, noon, and evening building to the AVM, launching their own version of what could be built on top of this. We've got Xenon that went live earlier this year doing creator coins, would have floors. We've got another team, GLGL, building gaming tokens, gaming in terms of like casino. So if you have a casino game and it generates revenue and somebody launches it, that revenue from that game can be driven back to a gaming token that will be launched through an AVM empowered framework, and have their own bells and whistles. And then we've got 3 launch pads that are more typical launch pads. One that's more permissioned and looking for startups that want to launch tokens with proper teams. One that's focused more on memes. And then the other one, who actually I'm meeting with next week, or no, tomorrow afternoon. And I believe I still want to talk to them and get a real sense, but I believe it'll be more on the meme coin side as well. And so when you think about Nirvana, when I think about Nirvana, one of my favorite use cases of it, and this has been a topic of discussion for many, many months, is this idea of a launch pad, right? Samsara kind of takes existing tokens and it goes back and it applies these dynamics to them in this derivative landscape. And then a launch pad is like, how do we Nirvanify things going forward? And it's a very exciting prospect. There's a number of teams doing it in different ways, and 15% of the revenue that flows through those systems automatically arrives in the Nirvana treasury and will also be used to mint fresh Ana tokens, and that'll increase our treasury supply and borrow capacity and just lift the market. So 5. 1 is live, Xenon from months ago, and 4 more on their way. One that just kind of showed their face for the first time on Twitter last night, and that's Pass and Sahand from our our very homemade ambassador program. They decided, this is something I want to see in the world. I'm going to go build it. We're going to go build it. And so couldn't be more excited to see all that stuff coming too. And I'll let them talk a little more in depth about their specifics. But that's what's happening. And so as far as going back to give you a shout, you've been working with 5 different teams while building a brand new derivatives exchange, something that has never existed. There's no forked code. There's nothing you can borrow from in the code world. You had to build it all from scratch. And you did that while coordinating with 5 other teams about this essentially SaaS layer that is the AVM. And so I think you deserve a shout out because you're not slow. You're really, really not slow. I see you awake and in the chats with various teams asking you all these questions, and you're just launching different features for them on this back end. So for those of you who are like, hey, there's nothing going on, it's like I always say, it's just patience pays. There's a lot going on, and it's all coming together really quickly now down the stretch. 2 out of these 5 teams have confirmed like their plans are to be live in Q1. No dates given. But very excited for all that stuff. And so I know it's hard to take compliments. It's always awkward. Giving them is easy. Receiving them is like, what do I say to that? But I just want to give you a shout, dude. You're killing it, and you're doing a lot more than what maybe we've talked about regularly. And it says a lot when you've got a team of capable, talented individuals who just want to dedicate themselves to build on top of what you're building. And we've got 5 of them. And so, round of applause for you, sir. If it has not already been given, I think that's a worthy shout out. I know you've been like killing it in the last 2 weeks, in particular, 3 weeks, like 15-hour days, just like, here's this deadline. You know what I mean? Like, you must be tired. And then just to let you know, when we go live with Samsara, the journey,
of this coffee, I'm good.
Yeah, the journey does not end with the launch of Samsara, but it'll be a really nice milestone and a moment to just exhale and say, okay, what's next?
I am going to write an article once this thing gets launched to the effect of, it is not easy to build an exchange. Shout out to the people who've done it. Turns out it's hard to build an exchange.
Harder than you expected?
Yeah. I've been working in DeFi for a while and never had to build the entire stack. You can usually rely on other people's stacks. An aggregator like Jupyter, to track everything. You borrow from other people and delegate. But my goodness, we had to build it all from the ground up. It's like high performance, low latency, high throughput. And it's because of this platform that it's turning into. These launch pads, these products building on this, they will take off. They will have their traffic. They will be, when we talk about Radium doing $1 billion, or what if the next 3 pump funds are all built on this? They're doing hundreds, if not $1 billion in volume a day, gazillions of transactions. Anyway, we've had to build out enormous data indexing services for this with high reliability, quick turnaround that can really scale for these customers. And that has been the labor of love. On
infrastructure. Things, as my non-dev brain, things that don't come to mind. When I go to the DevNet, I'm like, when I go to anything, like I go to a website, I'm like, why doesn't it work on my phone? It's like, well, it's not optimized for that model. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things that I think we, and I in particular, but people in general, take for granted in the dev world, where it's like, oh shit, just kind of works. Yeah, every day I spend about 10 minutes of my life troubleshooting something. But the more I've sat in with you on calls and you're just talking about the infrastructure, the databases, and this indexing, it's like, oh, none of that is something I can see. Like a month might go by and that's all you're working on, and it's important and it's incredibly deep in its what you get to do for it. And it doesn't change the front end for me, so I don't notice it. But that's a lot of stuff that's been going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. It's funny whenever the internet goes down and it's like, oh, Instagram isn't working. Says my girlfriend. My mind immediately goes like, oh, those poor engineers. They just pulled an all-nighter. They're trying to fix their flaming servers. Anyway, thank you. And this has taken longer than expected. It really is for these two reasons. One of them is preparing for massive scale. You can't really phone this stuff in. And real people with their companies are depending on these services. And we make a promise to them. I need to make sure that they are reliable. And then secondly, these companies all have different features that they need. What's coming out of this is going to be a generic, again, to use this word correctly, protocol, a platform for building AVM applications. And you can never get the design of this right alone in your armchair, but working with other real companies who have their own idiosyncrasies goes into the feature sets, the designs, where you put the knobs and the access control and what's permission and what isn't. It's been a very, very fruitful process working with all these diverse companies, and the platform, when it's finally released publicly, is going to benefit much from working with them. So that's why getting everything right, so that when Samsara launches, it's stable, it's reliable, it works. These people are launching, it's stable, it's reliable. And then there's a platform with APIs and SDKs and quality of life services so that anybody can build on it.
Which I'm excited to. And shout out to Rocker if you're watching today, or if anyone in the chat sees you. You've been asking for a long time. You're saying, I want to build this dashboard. I want to build this thing. And I need SDKs. And so shout out to you. I know you've been waiting patiently. And it's something I've brought up many times in meetings. I say, what's an SDK? How do we get this guy? Somebody get this guy an SDK. So that's also on the docket. Once this goes out, it's set up for scale. And then it's like, how can we engage the community, third parties, to just build whatever you want using the data that we've got?
Yeah. Nirvana is a product. Samsara is a product. But the engine underneath it is a platform. Again, talk about the bid and the bots, but the revenue that the platform earns just goes directly to buying Ana. That's the right thing to do. 15% of the cumulative revenue of everybody building on this is a pretty big number. Let's say all combined, they're doing about $50 million a day, all combined. I mean, you're talking about the next pump fun. It'll be more than that, most likely, but.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about these launch pads in more detail. I've obviously sat in on calls with them and the design, and it's such a beautiful model to launch a new token. I mean, I'll just share this one thought, because this was an epiphany I had very recently that through this call. It was actually their idea, and I just was like, oh shit. You create a coin, you launch the coin. It's a funny coin. We want to buy the coin. And then it goes up a whole bunch, 500%. You're making some creator fees. That's great. But you want to sell because you want to capture that gain. That's the end game for someone who launches a meme coin or buys it early. You're going to sell. And when you sell, price goes down. And if it's in a parabolic advance, price goes down a lot. And it often does not recover. I haven't been watching too closely, but from what I'm seeing on socials, meme coins are not having much fun right now. Nothing is, but to be fair, they're having the least amount of fun. Imagine a meme coin or creator coin or ICM, whatever you want. And you don't have to sell it when you want to cash out. You just borrow against it. And you make that NAV, that floor, the value that it has reached. That is a crazy meme in and of itself.
Yeah.
Never sell. Like I could just see people just sitting around chanting about it. Like, you don't have to. Don't be a greedy asshole. Nuke the market. Now, some people will, and it'll bounce off the floor and it'll go crazy, and it'll, as we know from the model, when somebody sells into the floor, it's actually bullish for the supply. It lightens the floor for every other token in existence. These things are going to be a lot of fun, these new tokens. And, same exact dynamic with Samsara, except that these are existing tokens that have their own liquidity elsewhere. But this launchpad model applied to the AVM is so exciting to think about. It's just better, and it works.
It's just better. It's all of the fun, and just better. They go up infinitely, indefinitely, with a floor price and built-in liquidation-free, interest-free credit. It is just better. And so supposing that these platforms together do a fraction of pump funds volume, just one pump fund, but all of them added together doing, I don't know, 50 million notional in value in volume a day. That comes out to be another $27 million annual just buying ANA automatically. This platform is not only just to make crypto a better place.
Less extractive.
I mean, part of this is mission oriented, which is, can we cut it with the pump and dumps? Can we cut it with the extraction? Can we cut it with the grifts?
The liquidation cascades are getting a little tiresome.
Yeah, you can still trade and speculate and gamble and invest, or whatever synonym you want to use. It just does not have to be so cataclysmic from time to time. A token launched on the AVM mathematically cannot drop more than 55.7% from the all-time high.
In a common orderly market, let's just say, because there is a timer and a delay and a lag on the floor in some cases. So yes, it could shoot up 100x, and if it pauses there, the floor will catch up. But just pointing that out. I mean,
that is wild.
Yeah, it's going to be reflexive, right? When you have leverage baked in to the platform, and I'm buying Peanut 2.0, and I put in $1,000, but I want $3,000 of exposure or $2,000 of exposure, and I can just get that right there. I don't have to go to Binance Perps and find some illiquid thing that drops 2.0001 cent every 17 months. Like, it just allows people to achieve that reflexivity, that amplified exposure, and all that stuff, just in a new way that doesn't end so poorly. And it doesn't come without risk. Anyone who levers up down at the floor, your equity is zero. Like, there's no magic here. It's just a lot better.
Yeah, price risk, but not liquidation risk.
Yeah. No. And we're seeing this a lot now. Like, I'm seeing this pop up. I think the market is catching on to the idea that it can be better. And so our timing around narrative and feels and ideals could not be better, right? Every time there's a liquidation cascade, we've had two, I guess, in the last month, right? 1010 being the big famous one, largest notional liquidation of all time, 20 billion plus. And then even as recently as last Thursday, there was a pretty nasty one, kind of the finale for now to that Bitcoin dip. Billion liquidated in 1 hour. Like, when's enough? And so could we offer a product that lets people trade these things in a much more orderly way with no dependency on third parties? It sounds like Binance was the culprit in this case with regards to orders getting through, market makers not being able to move their spreads down in time. And that's why a lot of the altcoins literally went to like near zero. I mean, in Adam's case, I think it was a fraction of a cent for a few pips. Auto deleveraging kicks in and everything shot back up. But like, a dream of a better day. And I'm excited to see it come to life here.
Rise me up a wall.
And then to have it sort of driving back the revenue that's collected into a location where people anywhere can get access to it, instead of large treasuries. Was it 450 million that Pump Fund moved over to Coinbase or Kraken this week? Everyone's like, wait, again? you guys captured that value and it's now leaving the system. Now, who knows what they did with it on that exchange? But this narrative, this idea, they've done a ton of buybacks too. So not, credit where credit's due. They've got a lot of revenue and they're buying back their token. But could we just keep that all on chain, all in a system that anyone can have access to the upside on? And that's the idea. And so there's been some questions. We've talked at length today about sort of what's next. Samsara being the obvious one, Break the Floor being the first one, then Samsara, SDKs. We've got AVM teams building. Let's zoom out even a little further. We've talked about Zenlone's vault, right? That could be built on top of Samsara and enable people to just simply deposit token, establish a credit line, borrow token out, and other things. What other things come to mind? Is it stay where we are and kind of just improve, add features, rebuild apps? Or do you have, I mean, other AVM teams could emerge. I think if any of these AVM teams products take off, we'll probably see a few more teams that are looking for that access.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I'll just rattle off the next big boulders. One of them is integrating directly into third-party aggregators that make purchasing these tokens easier.
Titan Dex. Shout out to
Yep.
Titan Dex. The team's been fantastic to work with so far. We're in the queue, and they actually reached out to us this week to sort of zero in on when we can get that done.
Yeah, it's rather difficult to do these integrations, and this is why you'll see most products on Solana, Ethereum, etc., delegate to the tried and true that's already out there. Like move their liquidity into an exchange like Uniswap or Radium or Orca, because things are already hooked in there.
Yeah,
it's kind of like water going downhill and finding the valley. But our exchange is different. Our AMM is different, and it has to be glued in together. There's been a significant amount of improvements to UI and UX from working on the Samsara interface, and that's going to be foisted into Nirvana's app to make it simpler.
Things like, if I may, sorry to cut you off, things like auto leveraging and deleveraging, or something that's a little, I saw some talk of that. I feel like if that is sitting in the toolkit, we can expect to see it on the Nirvana side at some point.
Yeah. The purpose of ANA is really just to store value. It is a store of value. It produces yield, it provides you credit, it holds value. That's kind of it. And the application can be streamlined to that use case.
Like borrowing USDC directly, right?
Yeah.
Like obfuscating the swap through Nerve and then just showing the grand fee at the end, which would still, that kind of stuff. Ease of life improvements.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole host of those that'll come through. Certain details, maybe not worth going into, that improves the token visibility with aggregators. They're kind of looking in the wrong place, and that can obscure what's actually going on with the number of holders, number of volume, things like that. Creating a LST version of ANA has been a long-running side project, and that's going to be very important for unlocking liquidity so that you can deposit ANA and still earn your revenue share from that, the productive properties of it, while carrying around in LST, which, in other words, a receipt of your deposit, which itself is an instrument that can be used. Integrating these things in with other DeFi margining systems, you get these tokens accepted on BorrowLens, such as Camino, MarginFi, etc. Eligible collaterals over there.
Mm-hmm.
The move with Samsara is to generate exogenous buy pressure for the ANA token. It's to make crypto a better place because of making floor prices common sense. But then it's also to activate extended communities. When there's a Samsara Bonk token, which is mooning and generating revenue for everybody, it just makes it easier to get the attention of other people in Solana and forge partnerships and be working together, because Samsara will be making them money. One of the nice things about Samsara is it's non-competitive. We just accept somebody's stake stole derivative. Don't need anything from them, and it's just amplifying demand for that token. Good vibes all around.
Yeah, and to have multiple teams, presumably with their own marketing spends, all telling our story as the AVM's front ends go live. And I've said this all year, just takes a spark, takes a moment. I had my aha moment in January. Everyone watching this stream probably had their aha moments sometime between, 2022 and now. There's a lot of V1 OG sticking around. And you reach that point gradually, then suddenly is typically the way. And we got a lot of sparks coming. And on that topic, You mentioned Solana and ecosystem, and I've been learning a lot about Super Team this past month.
Aha.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot about Super Team. I met some of the guys on the Super Team Canada through Monkey DAO. I went to one of their meetups, had really good conversations with them. Followed up with Simon. Shout out to Simon from Super Team. Followed up with him this week, and he invited me to join Super Team. He said, "How would you like to join Super Team?" And I don't know how much people watching know about it. And I said to him, I thought that was just for devs. He's like, no, it's like 20% Super Team Canada's devs. And the rest are just biz dev, uh, fundraising specialists, whatever, like KOLs, whoever, just talented people that want to help grow Solana and grow it locally. And there's lots of Super Team chapters in the world. I want to say 50. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. Anyways, today I'd also like to announce it'll be official on Twitter probably later today, but I am joining Super Team Canada. I've joined. I'm in, and
Bravo.
I'm so excited for that. I woke up feeling rather super this morning, just kind of like, this is a really fantastic network of people to work with and support. There's going to be hackathon teams that will need mentorship and whatever, and I just want to get involved. I want to do that stuff, and tell our story. It kind of amplifies my ability to do that, and just to I'm going to head down to the office on Friday and meet with as many of them that are there. I get access to that office all week, every week now, if I want to take that spin down to Toronto. So could not be more excited. And that's my special news for the week. I'm very pumped to join the ranks of Super Team Canada, which I believe is the largest chapter in the world. But don't quote me on that. But 99 members from what I saw, and just very excited about that. So I'm buzzing today, and we're going to Breakpoint in 2 weeks. So I've started. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I booked you a flight. So we're going to go over to Abu Dhabi in a couple weeks. And I've just started hammering away at our itinerary. We've got events. This is around the time where all the Illuma events start popping up, and you start looking and seeing, like, how can I maximize my time? Conference during the day, afternoon, happy hours, evening events, night dance parties, whatever the case may be. It's like, this is that time to just really line things up and make sure that we're getting out there to have the most impactful visit we can. And it's a new country for me. I've been to Dubai once, and actually hosted a kick-ass event there with my fund a couple years ago. It was really cool on the rooftop of the Four Seasons. Not doing that this time around. In Abu Dhabi, it's all business. So we've already got 4 or 5 events lined up that we will attend, and just Monkey DAO Hotel. It's going to be great. So that's like, 17 days away now. We're getting close, maybe even less. So yay.
Yeah, this is great. I'll say it again. One of the things about our endeavors here is that it's big tent, positive sum. It's not another like perpetuals exchange trying to like fight for market share. Anybody can come and be in this, and it grows the pie for everybody. It is so fitting. You're making these friends, networks, colleagues, connections, and then to go into Breakpoint and just get people onboarded and get people building on us.
Yeah, there's a lot of apathy out there, and honestly, not in the builder communities. Like, there's if you're ever feeling bearish on crypto, there's 2 recommendations I have. First one is always go to the bank, try to send a wire transfer. If you're ever doubting the future of finance or this narrative, just go try to send money internationally at a wire at a bank. It will restore your faith in crypto. Second to that, go to a conference. Go to a well-organized conference. Breakpoint has always been fantastic. I've been to 4 of them. And just talk to people, because the energy in real life with builders is infectious and it's fantastic. And so when I say, like, there's a lot of apathy, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, like, in the broader market, it feels like belief is running out. And I read an interesting thread to this effect that kind of was like, damn, that's very accurate. This idea, like this belief that these things are the future of finance. Or maybe you think this protocol is amazing, but I'm not convinced that there's a tie to the token with regards to growth and revenue. And so what do you see? How does that show itself on the charts and with price? And It's very short-lived rallies, rush to the exits anytime you're up a little bit, and you get that big loopy, swirly lower high thing that goes into zero, which we're seeing from a lot of 2017 OG tokens, except Zcash, of course. Shout out to Zcash, been an absolute killer this year. All that to say, I'm excited to restore that belief. And we've built a beautiful product that can do that can apply to existing tokens, that can apply to future built tokens. And so in this time where maybe this time of year, this time in the cycle, if we want to talk about cycles, I'm losing interest in those overall. It's time to restore belief, give something new for people to believe in. And that's when I say pilled, because there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, that's really cool, but it won't work. There's a lot of this skepticism when I talk to people in certain places. They say, oh, that sounds fantastic. Can't wait. Call me when it breaks. And so that's, again, going back to break the floor. It's like, well, I want to find different ways to just let people know, like, crypto, blockchain tech, smart contracts, they really are as beautiful as people say. But they have not been perfected yet. There has not been, in some cases, it's actually just led to like turbo extraction. It's kind of like TradFi is so extractive, the little man can't get above or can't get ahead. And as the tide goes out, we're seeing a lot of that same stuff here. And I just want to be a part of building away from that and towards something better. And that's why I found you. So yeah, excited to take that kind of energy into Breakpoint and just share with people what we've got going on.
Crypto was supposed to be different. And unless it's different, it doesn't really deserve to exist. There's something about the paradigm, the ideology of crypto to stand apart from the way conventional markets have been structured. Happy to see the tide turning with this. Let's do things the crypto way. Have the same level of transparency, regularity, reliability as what Bitcoin inspired back in 2008. Equations, not human fiat. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And there is a ton of really good innovation. I don't want people to think we're dooming it up. There's a lot of really interesting innovation. I, for one, have been a huge fan of privacy tech for years. Secret Network last cycle was a big fan of theirs. Monero for years. Never held Zcash until this year. But seeing privacy come back as this feeling, like it's kind of like when you just see someone else singing your song, like I always said, as like, the future of finance is not going to be built in some way where everyone can see inside everyone's wallet. That just seemed obvious to me. That's not to say I didn't speculate on all these assets. I did. But it always occurred to me that privacy would be the final piece, some kind of version of compliant privacy where you could ensure that it's not super bad actors, terrorists, whatever, but also, mimic the banking system where the bank can see what everyone has. But when I send you $50 for pizza, you're not like, hey, you have minus $400 in your account. Like, I can track your entire history of finance. Like, that's just not something that ever occurred to me. Would be the final thing. So the privacy stuff I find exciting. That innovation is storming back into fashion. And I think the world's ready for it. So
I think so.
Yeah, which reminds me, I want to list Zcash on Samsara. We'll talk, but it's decently liquid on Solana now, and it's one that I think is a natural fit for us when the time comes. There was a question today about initial listings. I know this is not an AMA, but it's an important question. It's a good relevant topic. I would say they're like 98% finalized at this point. Look on the DevNet app when we do break the floor next week. That's going to give you a really good idea of what our initial set will be. Let's not go as far as to say that's the exact set in this order. But weeks, not months. Somebody else asked about the date, the launch date. Anything on the launch date? Weeks, not months.
Oh, weeks for sure. Yeah.
Handful of weeks. And, we're getting into this interesting space now where it's like, market's a little gully right now. I don't know. It doesn't really bother me. Like I said, I think launching these assets and dips is actually fantastic. Getting into Christmas in a few weeks, and then it comes back to like, okay, it's ready. when is the optimal time to launch? And that can be a trap for startups. I'm seeing a lot of it. I've got a lot of teams that I've been working with over the years that are like, we're going to launch in Q4 because that's when we expect the market conditions to be just right, that we'll catch a bid and, overcome the airdrop inertia and whatever. And it can be a really long wait if you're trying to time it like that. So that's not really our intention here, but it does bear the question. Do you want to launch right before Christmas, at Christmas? Is it better to just wait till New Year's? We have no real final decision on whether we would play that game through this holiday that's coming up in about a month. But I dare say that we expect to be live well before that. I'll just leave it there.
Oh, yeah.
You're sitting here like, dude, we're not going in January. Like, there's more moving parts than just one. The app being ready is one. And anyways, I'll leave it to you to tell me when we have a date that I can talk about, but it won't be a surprise, guys. It's not going to be like, boom, we're live today. Like, there will be a lead up. And the start of that lead up is Break the Floor, which is next week.
Mm-hmm. Big things ahead.
How's that for a roundabout answer to when launch? That's just the reality, guys. It's what we've got. It's not an exact date right now. Internally, we've got one. We're targeting it. We're getting ready for it, and it'll announce as soon as it is final.
Very good.
Shall we leave it here? Yeah, we should. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in today, and I hope this effectively illuminated the bright future we've got coming up here for Nirvana and everything else we're building. Shout out to the 5 teams building on the AVM. Shout out to Sid for working with them, getting them all up to speed over the year. And shout out to our fantastic community who's over here watching in the chat. #soon. Take care, everybody.